If you really want to gain velocity in getting people to back you in whatever you want to do, you have to engage them in the process. What we always want to strive for is to exceed others' expectations and not to disappoint people. But what we're also striving for is how to maintain our velocity and how to make sure we're working on the right tasks that move us forward. So the secret to gaining velocity and influence is to engage your audience. Many of us today are feeling out of sorts. We are in a period of flux and not sure of our future. Today is only a point in time in our lives. How we handle this difficult period will impact our overall performance in life. Are you letting this tough moment negatively impact you, or are you using it to create breakthrough thinking on what you want and need to do to win the marathon of life? Now, you're taking some quantified risks which will help you gain velocity. And welcome to this week's Velocity Mindset Success Stories. Hi, this is Ron Karr, the author of The Velocity Mindset. And today we have an extraordinary guest. In fact, when he gives you his bio, he actually puts the bio in the form of a dictionary definition. His last name is Gitomer, and he has Gitomer defined as a creative, on-the-edge writer and speaker whose expertise is on sales, customer loyalty, and personal development. He's known throughout the world. He's the author of 17 books, many of them bestsellers, including the New York Times bestseller, The Sales Bible, The Little Red Book of Selling, The Little Black Book of Connections, The Little Gold Book of Yes, and I can go on, but you can see he likes to write little books, but man, they are big books because they have sold millions of copies. Would you please help me welcome our guest for this week, Hall of Fame speaker, none other than Jeffrey Gitomer. Hello, Jeffrey.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for setting such low expectations, Ron. I totally appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah. It's harder and harder to get on the New York Times bestseller list, I can tell you that. Although these little kids' books are, the book I'm reading right now, that my daughter's reading, was the #1 New York Times bestseller, a book called Orange. I would recommend any parent with a teenager to buy it and read it so you can see how your kid thinks.
So how are kids of that age? And I think you have a 12-year-old daughter. So,
Yeah,
and they become the future buyers. So
oh my gosh.
How are they thinking today? Why don't you share that with us?
She buys everything online unless she's at a place where she can go shopping. You know, she likes to go to the mall like anybody else. She likes to shop like anybody else. But her first place is go someplace and buy it online. But she doesn't care where it's from.
But isn't that true for most of us? Because I go to Amazon because it's so much easier just getting it and having it delivered than, you know, having to get into a car and go to a store.
That's true for us, but for her, it's every element of her life. She is willing to buy things that you and I would not be willing to buy online. She'll buy pens and pencils. She'll buy stationery. She'll set up an account, a Patreon account with somebody in Japan to be a pen pal. I mean, she's fluent in how to get what she wants online, how to search and find what she wants online. And then if she has to go someplace to get it, she will. But she pre-shops everything online.
So what's the magic, if you will, with selling to the younger generation today, besides the fact that they do it online? What do we have to do to get them to say yes online?
There is a magic, and the magic started with millennials. The answer is, if you are not more technically adept or equally technically adept as they are, they will ignore you. So the first thing they're going to do is see where you are. You have a TikTok account, you have an Instagram account. They won't go to Facebook because it's passé for, Facebook. Yeah, it's for old people. Okay, thanks. Thanks for putting me in my category. But they will go to YouTube. And then they're going to look and see how many views you have and how many followers you have. So for me, I've got millions of views and I've got 50, 60,000 followers. So I qualify to talk to a kid. They'll
but
actually talk to me.
so you're bringing something up. I think that's true for all generations. I mean, when we go to Amazon or some other website, one of the things we all start looking for is, how many reviews do you have for this product? Is
Right,
that a fair statement?
right.
And
Yeah,
that
are
gives
you a 5?
yeah, or you're five, but also how many? I mean, when I
Yeah,
see the 13,000 reviews versus 100, I'm going to the 13,000 because, they had a 4.5 rating at over 13,000. It means more
right.
to me.
No different than an Uber driver.
All right, now you and I, well, we won't tell our age, but when we were younger, when we were selling, what were we trained to do? We were trained to go get testimonial letters. Well, now those
Yeah,
ratings are the testimonial letters of today. Fair statement?
yeah. Video has taken away every other form of communication, unless you're not familiar with video, in which case you're going to die.
Right. Let's talk about what everybody's dealing with today. We got
Sure.
the pandemic, obviously. The world's changed a little bit. We got supply chain crisis going on. We got labor shortages and all that.
And
For
that's the good news, by the way.
You're right. So for a VP of sales or a CEO listening to this thing and saying, but I still have to sell, what is the one, two, or three things you would suggest to that VP of sales as to what they have to take into account in today's environment in order to succeed?
More sales will be made virtually day by day than ever before. As people get used to the virtual world, the sales call will become more virtual on Zoom, on Facebook, on live interactions. There's all kinds of platforms now that are available. We're on StreamYard. I go on StreamYard every single day for a Facebook Live and for all my social accounts in the morning. I've done it for 571 straight days as of today because I wanted to talk to my audience in the pandemic. And every salesperson better have an ability to reach out to a customer virtually, or they will lose to someone who does.
Well, let's flesh that out for a second. So I know you for a while. We've known each other for a long time. And you shared with me the story that once COVID hit, you decided to go live every day free
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook. And like you
Mm-hmm.
just said, you did over 500 shows. What has
Mm-hmm.
that done specifically for your sales and for your brand by doing that?
It's interesting. I talked to people about how they could go live. I gave instruction on how you could go live. And then I made 37 videos in my library um, for a product called The New Normal. And within a month of the COVID thing, I'd sold 6 figures worth of product for people that wanted to know how to go live, who wanted to know how to do better video, who wanted to know how to talk to a camera, want to talk to a screen. And there's a thirst for knowledge out there. So now we're sort of getting into hey, it's part of the mainstream. Some salespeople, especially older people, are resisting it because they don't think that there's enough money in it,
Right.
or that maybe they think they're a little camera shy. I'm telling you that the research that I've done says your customer would rather do business with someone ugly. So there's a lot of people there that think they're not qualified that are just totally qualified.
You,
But
you
I
just
think
set me you just set me up for a line, but I won't use it.
good, but
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 go ahead.
it's fine with me. I have not mastered virtual, but I try new things every day. It puts me into a situation. So let me give you an example of what a salesperson who wants to be on the road can do. You call somebody up or you email somebody and say, hey, I really would like to set a virtual appointment with you on Zoom. And you set it a week in advance. And you set it for 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning. You find out from that person or somebody in their company what their favorite K cup is. And you send them a box of K cups and a mug. The mug I send out for the most part is sometimes all you need is $1 billion. So that guy now gets a box of K cups and a mug for a week in advance appointment. Is he going to be there on time?
Yes, he will be.
Yes. Is he going to tell anybody else about it?
Probably, yeah.
I get 3 calls a week for people that want to set a virtual coffee with me.
You know,
So I've been doing it for.
that's a really interesting story that you just posed. So let's go a little further with that, because you're really addressing my next question. The biggest challenge that CEOs and VPs always hear them saying is, I need my people in front of the customers because that's the only way they get
Right.
engagement. But you just showed
And
a perfect example of engagement without being in front of them.
right now, let's take away the K cup and take away the mug. And then you have a salesperson saying, well, the guy didn't show up.
Right.
The guy didn't show up. What are you blaming the guy for? The guy didn't show up because you sucked.
Okay.
The guy didn't show up because you had no capability of creating an urgency for that guy or some meaning for that guy to show up. So I don't listen to salespeople whining to me about why they couldn't make a sale or why somebody didn't show up for an appointment. I just challenge them that today is their day to read a book on creativity. Today is the day to start to think of things in a new and better way and stop blaming the customer and start taking responsibility for yourself.
You know, that's an interesting thing. The premise of the velocity mindset is, what would the world look like if everybody acted like a leader, not a victim of circumstance? And the first question we ask everybody to think of is, something doesn't go right, before you blame anybody, ask yourself, what could you do differently? And that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, carry a mirror with you. You want to know whose fault it is? You yank the mirror out of your pocket.
Okay, so you talked about engagement to get them to come. What techniques do you have to increase engagement during the actual Zoom sales call?
Well, like anybody, you have to have the ability to understand who you're talking to. You know, the old Dale Carnegie quote, if you become interested in them, they are more likely to connect with you than if you try to get them interested in you.
Right.
And the customer does not want to hear a sales pitch. The customer, can I share my screen and share my boring slides with you? And the answer is no, you can't. Now what do you do? So you have to, if you're not bringing an idea into the conversation or something relevant to that person, then your meeting is worthless. So there has to be creativity to get the meeting, and then you have to research to get into the meeting and get some engagement. And even if it's just about their children or what's going on in their lives, because Ron, this has been a very tough time for a lot of people. And, you know, some people have had, well, let's put it this way, it's mixed. Some people have literally lost loved ones, and some people have just been inconvenienced by running out of paper towels or toilet paper. But I think that everybody has to understand what specifically has gone on with those people so that they can understand how to communicate with those people and engage them. It's all about engagement.
Right. So, look, you know, you've talked about something that's central to the velocity mindset. We talk about the neuroscience of engagement and the hormones. And the moment you shift a conversation or a question to where someone's trying to go versus what you're trying to do, engagement increases significantly and they start feeling better about that. But you also brought up a point of saying this has been a really tough time for all of us. And all of us have felt it in some way, shape, or form. So how are you taking an interest in what they're going through and how they're dealing with it, and then looking at maybe how you can help them? It's almost like making a help call versus a sales call.
Correct.
What's your thought on that?
Now is the time to sell, to help. And now is to take it even deeper, help customers win.
Exactly.
Because they need to win as bad as you need. And sometimes that doesn't involve your product or your service. So you literally have to be more of a giver in these days than a taker. And if you've always been a taker in sales, you're going to lose. You're going to lose to a giver.
So,
and,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You can't go hunting for a sale. You have to go hunting for a customer, an engagement, a friend, a confidant, somebody that you can talk back and forth to, and that will lead you to a sale. And it may not be overnight, but it will be eventually. It'll happen.
That's a great quote. You can't go hunting for a sale. You go hunting for a prospect, a client, or whatever. So, Jeffrey, obviously, if I could do the same amount of sales virtually that I did going on in-person calls, which we know that when people are outside, they're probably only spending 24% in front of the customer. Now they're spending close to 100% of it's virtual. It seems like they can do a lot more in less time, number one. Talk
Correct.
to us about that.
Well, let's say you have a morning cup of coffee every morning. You've now made 250 sales calls in a year before you ever walk out the door. What's the value of that? And why don't you have 2 sales calls in the morning? Now you have 500 sales calls before 10 a.m. And I will guarantee you that there's sales at the end of some of them.
Talk
That's
about
number one.
velocity.
Certainly relationship at the end of at some of them. But
Talk about velocity.
exactly, you've gained momentum, and you also feel better about it because you've had a win before you get into your car. Now, if customers are reluctant to see you, maybe all of your calls are virtual, but you have to have a reason for them to want to talk to you. You have to have a
Okay.
reason for them to want to engage with you. And the reason is anything about them and virtually nothing about you.
Exactly.
If they want something of yours, they'll ask.
Perfectly said. Are there any industries that do not take to the virtual selling model?
Yeah. Anything outdoors, any building supplies, anything that's being done outside has never gone away. Within
But
reason.
why can't I still do a virtual call with that person?
You can. I have one customer who's outside all the time, and I'm literally forcing them to have coffee with somebody before they go out the door.
But you're saying it's hard to be virtual because they're walking outside and they don't have the camera.
It's harder to be virtual because they've never grown up in that environment. It's a new thing for them, and they have to master it. And they have to decide that they want to master it. And some people, I've been doing this for 30 years, and don't tell me. I'm like, you know what, dude? You've been doing it for 30 years. How's it going so far?
Do you
It's like
ever...
people that tell me they make a lot of money cold calling. We differ in our definition of the words a lot.
Yeah. So I know in my daughter's industry, for example, a lot of entertainment was going on, before COVID and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Now COVID shut all that down, right?
Yep.
Oh, are we going back to those days at all?
Yeah, they're opening up.
So you think that still the idea of taking a customer out for dinner or doing some entertainment is still going to happen again?
Yes.
So that will be in person?
If you live in the South, it's already happening. If you live in the North, it's not happening.
Right. Well, it's starting to open up in the North too a little bit, but
yeah.
But those days are coming back. But are they going to come back to the same degree that they were before?
Never.
Tell us about
companies have already cut travel budgets by, I'll be conservative, 75%, because some have cut it 100%. They found out that Bob can connect with Mary online. Why do I need to send Bob to Cleveland? And the Cleveland flight is gone. Just look at any airline right now. The reason the planes look full is because they cut out half their flights.
Right.
They're hurting, and they know it. And they're trying to be friendly, but they're not doing a real good job. So for those of you who are in any kind of service industry, and I told this just today to an American Airlines front desk person, it costs no extra money to be friendly.
But now, so I also had an experience down here. It wasn't an airline. It was actually a drugstore, a pharmacy where I went in for something, and person didn't give me exactly a friendly answer. I just looked at her, and then she all of a sudden lost it. And she goes, "What do you want? We're all drained out with COVID. We're all overworked. What do you want from me?" And she was really having a mental breakdown at that point. Mm-hmm. How do we handle that? I know how to handle it, but I'm saying, when we're calling up our customers, they're going through similar situations. What's the best technique for taking that into account when you're trying to work with them?
Number one, find out how they're doing. How's it going? What's been going on? And that will give you the indicator of where to go. While they're talking to you, you pay the maximum attention to them by taking notes. Because if you talk to 5 customers in a day, you're never going to remember what happened to each one of them. Because one of them, had a relative pass on from COVID. So you have to identify exactly what's going on. And then you have to say, is there anything that I can do to help? Is there anything I can do to facilitate? Do you need somebody to go here for you? What do you need to do? And if you find out what's going on, and you're empathetic about it, and you ask them how you can help, now you have a chance of having a conversation with them. But most salespeople need to make a quota, which is the single dumbest thing a salesperson can have.
Well, if that's the single dumbest thing a salesperson can have, what should management do in terms of quotas?
Train them better so that they ignore their quota. I know that there's always a top 20% or 25% in every company of salespeople that ignore quota. They laugh at it. Well, what's the difference between them and the other 20 and the other 75%? And the answer is their own personal motivation, their own personal love of what they do, love of boss, love of product.
Yeah, but wait a second. They ignore quota the top 25% because they know they're going to blow through it anyway. They're going after their own number.
That is correct.
Right? And that's because of their motivation.
They look at that quota and they laugh at it.
Right, because they say, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to be doing 1.5 times that or whatever.
Right. And then it's up to management to encourage people to win rather than try to restrict people to a process. I need you to make 13 calls.
If the quota process doesn't work, what process should they use then?
I would use an earnings process. If salespeople, when I talk to salespeople, I say, listen, you're not earning enough money. You're way more capable than this. But what do you think you need to do to double your revenue?
Yeah, but
because salespeople don't want to make sales; they want to earn money.
But if you also notice what you just did, you were doing the same thing that you were just saying a couple of minutes ago when we sell to a customer. The salesperson here is the customer, and you're asking them what's important to you when it comes to earning money.
Right. You have to. I don't ask a customer what's important to you. I don't think it's any of my business. But if it's a sales guy of mine, I want to find out what's important so that I can help them or encourage them to do better.
Wait a minute. What do you mean? I'm a little lost. You say you don't ask a customer what's important to you, but yet you just said we need to be empathetic and
I do research so I know what's important to them.
Okay.
If you ask a dumb sales question, you're going to get a dumb answer.
Okay.
If you ask me what keeps me up at night, you're going to get a real risque response. I'll tell you that. So I think that there's a challenge that salespeople have, that they take the lazy way out, and the lazy way is not going to work anymore, because there's some young kid who's willing to do a little bit more research, and he or she will shine in today's world. Yeah. And females way better than males.
You're right. I found out you got to do your research like you're saying, but I also found that you still want to ask the question because you want to hear their words as to how they would describe it sometimes.
No argument about that. But I don't want to if I see a bowling trophy in somebody's office, I'm not going to try to talk about something that I don't know about, but I might ask them how they want it.
Right. So go ahead.
I just want to get deeper into the emotional aspect of the person. So let me bring it to real estate, which I think is a better program. Real estate salespeople who already know everything, they go into a house and they give a tour, and they say, "This is the master bedroom." Really? The master bedroom? How big is that, pal? It's 16 by 19. Let's take a tape measure out. Let's see if you're lying to me or not. What I would do if I was a real estate salesperson, I would say, "This is a pretty big room. Where would you put the TV in here?" Now I'm engaging them. I'm getting a feel for who they are. And I'm going to go to the walk-in closet. Am I going to say, "This is a walk-in closet"? Or am I going to look at the woman and say, "Will all your clothing fit in this closet?" Because if it doesn't, this house is out. So I'm asking the salesperson to be thinking about what it is that they're asking in terms of the customer, rather than pontificate how bright they are.
And what you're suggesting is, by asking those questions, you're engaging a customer to start visualizing of what that house would look like with their stuff in.
Boom. Boom. That's exactly correct.
And that's a very powerful strategy. So,
Yep.
Jeffrey, one word you use over and over, and it's the central of the velocity mindset, but you and I have probably dealt with it for years on end. That's why we've been successful, is the word of empathy. You got to have empathy
Hmm.
today, especially today,
Hmm.
in order to
Yep.
sell. You want to talk more about that a little bit? I know we talked about it a
Sure.
lot.
I want to try to be on the other person's side of the fence if I possibly can be.
Why? Because they
And
have to
if,
believe that you're there for them.
right, no, I have to believe that I'm capable of being there for them, and it has to be sincere belief. Um, we both grew up in the New York City metropolitan area and sold a lot in the New York City metropolitan area, where empathy is oftentimes not as sincere as it could be. And there's the 3 word phrase that always blows my doors off. Yeah, 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 which means I know everything. You're an idiot. So I've always tried to ask more questions when I get an answer rather than respond.
So
So
wait,
I when
wait. That's a mouthful. Let's go back there.
Okay,
Someone gives you a response, you're going to ask more questions than respond. Why?
because I don't need to respond yet. I haven't heard enough yet from them to find out what the depth of their feeling is. If I say to somebody, if I'm in real estate and I say, "Tell me about the bedroom that you grew up in," think about that question. It's an amazingly emotional question.
Yes.
And okay, so if I'm if I'm selling lumber, I'm going to talk to the customer and say, "Tell me about the last time you banged your thumb with a hammer."
Now, there's two parts to influence in the body: the heart and the mind. The mind's where you talk all the features. The heart's the emotional connection. Most people go to the mind first, but what you're saying is we need to go to the heart first and get an emotional connection. Because if we don't have an emotional connection, we don't get engagement and we won't get their attention.
Let me put it in a more succinct way. Head is attached to price. Heart is attached to wallet. If you
Mic
jerk on the
drop.
heartstring, if you jerk on the heartstring, the wallet comes popping right out of that back pocket. And people will say, "Well, what do you mean by that?" I said, "Well, do you have a kid?" "Yeah." "What's their closing ratio?"
I guess yours must be really high with you.
200%.
We're here with Jeffrey Gitomer. He's written 17 books, and I understand he's coming out with 2 more. You want to give us a little brief preview of those two?
Sure. One is called "You Already Know What to Do, You're Just Not Doing It." And that's a book about the allocation of time, not the management of time. People
And
are
when is that
lousy
coming
time
out?
managers. That'll be out in the spring. And then the second book I'm going to write about is more of a book for everybody. We've all had times in our lives where something happens and it changes everything.
COVID.
And I'm looking at a book where you take those days of your lives and say, okay, this is a turning point. My child is born. I marry my wife. My mom passed away. And these are moments in your life where the world is different. The next day, the world is different. And I want to talk about how we react to those, because it's not the day that it happens, it's the response to that day that matters. And you can easily look at it as 9/11, which 20 years later we're still responding to it, literally
Sure.
still responding to it, still uncovering things about it.
When
And
is that book coming
um,
out?
that'll be out probably by Christmas of next year, because I'm heavily into writing it right now, and I don't want to give away the title because I don't want somebody else to take it.
I got it.
Um, but
So,
but I can tell you that it's a very meaningful book because every single person can relate to it.
oh yeah,
Every single
definitely.
person has gone through some kind of um, great moment. You hit the home run to win the game, or you scored the goal to win the game, or your kid did, or you were valedictorian of your class, or you flunked class. But either way, it was a time in your life that you will never forget. You're in a car accident, you broke your arm, you saw the Eiffel Tower for the first time. All the things that happened in your life that changed your life, and how you reacted to those, how you responded to those, and in some cases, how you recovered from them.
Wow, it sounds like an extraordinary book, and I can't wait to get my hands on that copy. So,
You'll get a free one, Ronnie.
thank you, man. So Jeffrey Gitomer, who's got 17 books, has got 2 more coming out. We can't wait to see them. And I know you gave us a link that if anybody wants to get a hold of you, and we'll get that link back up right now if we can. They're going to, well, you might give us the link. There we go. Jeffrey.
There you go.
HTTPS www.gitomer.com. All you need is one word.
Yep.
He's one of the few people in the world. He doesn't need one word, and you know who it is. Gitomer.com.
Now, or come on my show tomorrow morning. The show's free. 9:59. Facebook. Go to facebook.com/Jeffrey Gitomer, my public page, and sales advice will be waiting for you.
So every day, JeffreyGitomer.com on Facebook, correct?
It's Gitomer.com, but it's Facebook.com/Jeffrey Gitomer, full name.
All right. Facebook.com/Jeffrey Gitomer. Did I screw that up?
And and for those of you listening or watching, I have to catch an airplane right now, and I have a special thing with the airplane. If I'm not there, they just leave.
Well, we're going to let you go. Jeffrey, I can't thank you enough for being with us and sharing these incredible words of wisdom. Let's have empathy. Let's go out there, find what people are trying to do and accomplish, and care about them. Jeffrey, thank you so much. And to all of you, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on Velocity Mindset Success Stories.